Hey, Mark Colgan here, B2B sales consultant and founder of The Vault. And in this video, I'm going to be walking through Apollo, which is a B2B database with some really cool filters to help you build lists much more efficiently. Now, Apollo does a lot more than just simply list building, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to focus on that side of the sales process. I'll talk a little bit at the end about what you can do with the data once you have the list. But Apollo here, this is their website. You can actually get started for free and to start building out your list using some of the basic filters. And then either the 49 a month or 99 a month plan will probably do you well for what it is that you need to do in terms of building your lists here. You can see the different pricing about the credits, and you can also add on some credits. But let's get into Apollo. So this is the homepage of Apollo. On the left-hand side, you see the navigation, which is typical of most software like this. You've got the prospect and enrich, so searching for people, for companies, saved lists, which is a list that you may have previously searched for and saved. Then Apollo also allows you to send sequences across email, phone, and LinkedIn. It has emails and calling as well. And it also can act as a CRM. So perhaps if you don't have a CRM and you are using Apollo on a regular basis, then you might consider using this as a very lightweight CRM where you can track your meetings. It has a calendar meeting booking link as well as conversations and deals. And then to unlock even more powerful features of Apollo, you've got tasks, workflows, and analytics. Perhaps I'll come back to these another time when it comes to going through the rest of Apollo. But for now, we're going to focus on list building. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through how to build a list of companies. Then I'm going to show you how to find people within that list of companies. And then lastly, I'm going to show you what a people search would be only, because in some circumstances, you might know that you just need a particular job title of a person in a certain area, and you're a little bit agnostic in terms of the companies that they work at. So I'll walk through the different variations. Before I jump in, I do want to show just a couple of things that Apollo has. The first is signals. So there's a lot of talk about signals or triggers that can help you increase the relevancy of your outreach. I always encourage people to use signals and prioritize campaigns based on signal data, but then you still need to have a larger list of your total addressable market for your ICP to reach out to as well, because only 3% of people are buying at any one time. So if you were to build lists with just signals, you're actually not going to have a lot of volume, although the timing should be right and you're more likely to get a reply. But as I said, you still want to have those larger lists so you can start to communicate with people who might not be in market right now, but potentially would be looking for a solution or service that you offer in the future. So just to go through a couple of the examples here, you can actually create your own signals, but some very common ones are companies that are cutting costs, companies that are expanding offices. Now, depending on what it is that you sell and your services, this might be relevant to you or might not. Of course, if it's not relevant, then you don't need to use the signal. Recent funding, so a lot of people do use this signal. We've got mergers and acquisition activity, new partnerships, new product or service, somebody who's new to role. That's usually a very good signal to use. High buying intent. I've never really seen too many compelling case studies of buying intent data working. And I think that's just because the way that we buy as consumers has changed. Just because somebody is searching for the best HR onboarding software doesn't mean that they actually want to buy HR onboarding software. That could be a marketer creating content, or it could be a competitor looking at other HR onboarding softwares as well. But some people do use intent, and it's totally up to you. New client sign of rapid growth. If you click into any of these as well, you can actually change the filters. So by default, Apollo is saying companies where the headcount growth in the past 6 months is more than 5 and less than 100. Now I could go in here and edit that and change this to various different configurations for that particular filter. I'm not going to do that for now. So yeah, moving on to buying intent. As I mentioned, this is the buying intent signals could highlight that somebody is looking for a service or product. Now, I made the mistake just before recording this of editing my intent topics because there was a topic in there that I used in a different example. However, let's say for my use case, I'm looking for companies that might be open to sales training. I could actually click and select this sales training provider and maybe some other intent keywords as well around sales. But as I made the mistake, you can only edit topics once every 24 hours. That's purely because of the amount of data that they have to sift through to get there. What I like about this though is as it hovers over each of the options, it shows you the data source. So sales training providers comes from Bombora and also LeadSift. Salesforce training service providers is just LeadSift. So it gives you a good indication. You can obviously go and search for those intent data providers. However, if you were paying for this intent data outside of Apollo, it's going to cost you tens of thousands a year to access that data. So the fact that you can get it inside Apollo is really, really good because it's included in, I believe, the $99 a month plan. So let's jump into building a list of companies. Now, I've prepared a couple of scenarios just to make the demonstration and tutorial a lot easier. So I'm going to be looking at what my scenario is. One thing to note before we get into building the actual list is that from my understanding, the majority of data from Apollo comes from LinkedIn. So you might be asking, well, if it's in LinkedIn, why don't I just use LinkedIn or LinkedIn Sales Navigator? Well, the reality is that the filters in LinkedIn and Sales Nav just simply aren't that great. And Apollo offers a lot more flexibility in terms of the filters that you can use to refine your lists. When it comes to building lists, I always encourage people to start as broad as they can and then narrow down using filters. So in this scenario, I need to build a list of companies that have raised a Series A, that they're software companies, they have 11 to 100 people, and their head office is based in the UK or the United States. Now, if you've built any list before in any database, you'll be pretty familiar with these different filters. You can click here and see all of the filters within Apollo, but I've pinned the common ones that I typically use. So they are on the left-hand side. But as you can see, there's company info, engagement activity. Engagement activity is if you are sending emails already. So it's pretty good how you can compare and build lists based on some of the engagement and the sequences that you're running. And then these are more admin statuses or filters, like did I import from a CSV, what the parent accounts, territories, and AI filters. This is a relatively new thing for Apollo. They've got run AI prompts. I'll probably record a separate video about this just because I want to keep this super simple, very basic into building lists. Okay, so Series A, SaaS companies with 11 to 100 people in the US and UK. Now, I might want to add some more filters, but first of all, I'm going to look here in my company. So I've clicked on companies here and I've got no filters selected. Now, the first thing I want to do is account location, and I want to select the region. I'm not going to exclude any at this point, but I've got United States and then United Kingdom. So now I can see that I have all of these results here. And if I look down here, there's 11.875 million. Way too many for me. And of course, I need to filter further down. So if I've got the location correct, now I want to go to employees. So I'm actually looking for 11 to 100. So let's select these. And let's see what our estimate, still 1.197. So we've still got too many companies at this stage. The next thing I want to do is, actually I'll walk through some of these other filters. So industry and keywords, this is something that's very good about Apollo, is if I go to advanced settings or company keywords, I can actually find if a company has mentioned a specific keyword in their social media description and their SEO description. So a great use case or example of this would be if I'm looking for email marketing agencies. If I just search for email marketing, I'm likely going to find software companies that offer email marketing software. So using keywords or searching by keywords can really help me narrow down that list. But I'm just going to untick this for now. Then we have the technologies that they're using. Now, this is something that I could filter by, especially for my services. If they're using Salesforce or HubSpot, that would be a good filter for me to add into my list building. To give you an idea of the different filters for technology that Apollo has, if you just type in Apollo and technology, you'll find that it gives you a guide here. But what's really handy is you actually can get a CSV file, which I've prepared earlier, which gives you all of the different categories and all of the different technologies. Again, what's interesting though is HubSpot is a CRM, but when I click here or type here, it's under marketing automation. So we have to kind of keep these nuances in mind, especially when our list, our end result of the list depends on the filters that we're using. So if I search for HubSpot, I don't actually know whether these are HubSpot CRM users or if it's just marketing automation or if it's both. If I look for Salesforce, which is of course a very well-known CRM, we've got Salesforce CRM Analytics in analytics and tracking. If I scroll down, Chats, which is Salesforce Live Agent, again, not the one I'm looking for, but under the CRM category, I do have Salesforce here. So use technology filters wisely. If you sell a service or a product that has to integrate with a particular tool, then it's more important for you to use that filter. If for me, where I offer sales process optimization and sales training, the reality is it doesn't really matter what CRM they're using. Ideally, they are actually just using a CRM to begin with. So that's just a quick detour and side note on technologies. Then we have revenue data. Now, when databases like Apollo give you revenue data for private companies, it's usually just guessed and it's an estimate. So I don't actually like to use revenue data as a filter because it could be wrong. And it might say that a company is doing 10 million, but they might be doing 4 or they might be doing 50. But because the risk of that data being wrong is so high, I therefore don't want to pollute my list with the wrong companies in that list. So ignoring revenue. Then we've got funding. This is one that I do need to look at. So I want to work with funded companies. For me personally, the reason why I'm looking for funded companies is that typically they're slightly more established and mature with their sales organization. Not to say I can't help seed or angel, but it's just typically my best clients are those that have raised a round of funding. But what you can also do, which you can't really do in most other databases, is actually say when that last funding round was and what that amount was. So I could put in minimum 1 million, maximum 100 million. Very rare that companies will close 100 million Series A, but it has happened. And then last funding date round from, now I can pick the date. So I want to go back to the last 6 or 7 months. So if I just take it to the 1st of July to today, this is going to bring me 176. So this is perhaps too small of a list. So now I can just adjust that filter and go back to April and see what that does. 307. So it's almost doubled that list. Let me just go back even further and just say if they've raised money in 2024. So that's 432. Now this is going to be a pretty decent list size for me because I don't need thousands and thousands of deals every month or year. I just need a handful of conversations every month to keep myself busy with my sales consulting work. So now I have done my funding. Job postings is another interesting one, especially if you have a very large list of companies and you want to find those that are currently hiring. You can actually just put in if they have more than 3 job postings, maximum 100. Again, this is going to filter it down. So now I can see that there are 57 companies that have more than 3 and less than 100 job roles open. But again, I don't want to do that for this case, but that's just how you use this filter. And you can actually filter it by specific keywords as well. So I can just put in sales, and now I can see that 21 companies are hiring in the sales team. Again, that could be a pretty good trigger for me to reach out and prioritize the list of an outbound sequence just to currently hiring, and I can reference the fact that they're hiring in their team. But I'm going to clear that for now. And then here we have signals. Signals was what I showed a little bit earlier in the demo, but now I can select some of these as well. So recent funding, all of them should have recent funding, but remember I can't, when it comes to recent funding, from 2 months ago. I would need to go back into my signals and change that there. So really good to see how these signals work and what you can do to change those too. But I'm going to click done. I'm going to remove this. Okay, so I've got 432 companies here. However, I don't know whether they are SaaS companies because that's my target audience. One of the ways that I try and work out the keywords is I click into the company, and now I can see that this gives me a company overview, prospects, and there's lots of information here. What I'm particularly looking for though is how do they categorize them? So they are information technology services. This is a good example of a company that I could help. And there doesn't seem to be too many other keywords here unless I'm missing it. Technology, so it shows me their technologies. Job postings, website visitors. Okay, so I know that this filter is a good filter for me, and I have just ruined my search. So yeah, be careful about clicking on the tags here because I've just overwritten my search. Let me see if I can just go back. Okay, I can, which is good. So now let's go into the keywords and industries. And that one, if we remember, was information technology. So I'm going to search information technology and services. There would also be, I think software is in here, if I remember, computer software. There's another technology, so information. No, or is it tech? Computer and network security. So this would be cybersecurity. So I've got 191 results here. So it's not the biggest of lists, but let's just say that I'm happy with this list view. The first thing that I want to do is just save this search. So I'm going to come up here on default view, create save search, and just call it Apollo tutorial. Obviously you'd call it whatever you want to and create the search. Now I can always come back and edit the filters if I want to. So we've got our short list of companies, 191, again, not the biggest list. But what I can do here now is I need to move over to find out the people within these companies. And let's say companies between 11 and 100, it most likely is the founder or the senior salesperson if they have one. So what I'm going to do is select all and click apply. And now I'm going to find people. Now, this is sometimes the challenge when you're building your list of companies. It doesn't, depending on the data source, you don't always have the ability to search for people within those companies, which is why I do recommend Apollo for most people when they're building lists, because it allows you to build a list of companies which are really targeted based on your criteria. And now you click find people. And what it's going to do, it's going to take all of those results, that 191 companies, and then add them here as a filter. So now I'm only searching within these 191 companies, and we can see at the bottom there is 6,845 people. Great. So now I want to refine these results by the people data, and as you can see it's changed to people, also reflected here on the left. The best way to do this is just simply go to job titles, and then I often don't like including people with similar titles. If it's for the founder or owner or CEO, then that's okay. But sometimes it brings through the COO, which isn't the person I want to reach out to. But with any list building, it's just about seeing what filters affect the results. And sometimes you make mistakes, or you put in a filter that you think is going to work and it ends up giving you the wrong results. So you just go back a step. It's the process of building lists. But I'm going to put in CEO. I think I have to enter, yep. And then founder. And let's see all the results. So I've got 434. So remember, there's 191 companies. 434 sounds about right because there's co-founders in a lot of these as well. And you can see it's pulled through a pretty decent list of co-founder and CEO, founder and CEO, CEO and co-founder. If I keep going down, what I tend to do as well is usually I trust the first results, but I sometimes click through on the other pages just to see if it starts to go wrong slightly. But let me go to number 6. Okay, it's looking like these results are pretty decent. And I know that all of these companies are a fit for me. So I can then look at other filters as well. Perhaps I only want to work with people who the contact is based in the United States and the United Kingdom. Just for this example, I do work with companies in different countries than these two, but just to show you how this affects the results, Now there's 355. So I've got a narrow list here, which is fantastic. And then some of the other keywords are pretty similar to those that we saw on the company side of things. But now I've got my list. I wanted to find software companies that had a Series A recent funding I did in the last year or year and a few months, with 11 to 100 people and the head office in the US and UK. There was 191 companies. Now I've got 355 CEOs and founders. Of those CEOs and founders that are based in the United States and United Kingdom. This is my list. I'm happy. So what I could do now is select all, or maybe save the search. It's always a good always a good process to save search. So again, I'm just giving it the tutorial people. Just saving that here. Now I can select all select all, 355, click apply, and I've got a few options. I can export this list. I can export these results. I can add them to a list. I can enroll them in a sequence, or I can click save, but I'm pretty sure I've just saved them here. So if I go to export, this is going to cost me credits. Now the process that I like to follow using Apollo is I build the list in Apollo, I get the data out of Apollo, and then if I need to run any enrichment, I typically put it through a tool like clay.com. That enrichment that I might do in this particular example is I'm still not 100% sure that these companies are exact fits for me, so I can run an enrichment on that. And I know that Apollo has recently put out some new prompts for this, which I may record a separate video about. The other thing I do here is I never trust one source when it comes to verified emails. I always run it through an additional check. So I actually quite like to take out all of the results, even ones that email are missing, because another provider might have that data. I want to include catch-all emails for this part of the process, but I certainly won't be emailing people that I only have a catch-all email for. I would then click next. I'm not going to do this at the moment just because it's going to use some of the credits that I need to use. And once I click next, it would start to go and find the contact details, the email address for those prospects that I've built here. Okay, so we've built a company list and then we found people within that company, but sometimes you may not have a specific company requirements. And I'll give an example. At the moment, I'm just working in Lisbon and I want to meet some other salespeople that are also based in Lisbon. So for that reason, I would go to a people search, and because I've saved this search, I can just simply clear the filters because I can always go back to the search. I like to go back to default view. So now I'm starting from scratch again. I've got 223 million people to search from. Well, as I said, in this use case is I want to find people who are in Lisbon. So it's like going to be super specific. Lisbon, Portugal. Apollo has 353,000 people in Lisbon. Now I want to do job title. And I want to do VP of sales. Let's see what that comes up with. So I've selected that and I've found 55 people. So this is a little bit too broad. So what I might do is head of sales. Let's see what that brings up. 245. So now I want to look through, are these the right people that I want to reach out to? Are these the right job titles? So yeah, looks like all of these are good. Let's just skip to a random page. 6 is just the one where the mouse scrolls to. So I've got head of sales and marketing, still not too bad, but let's say I don't want anybody with marketing. I can simply go to simple and exclude marketing. So these people should fall out of it now. So yeah, I've reduced the roles to the numbers to 218. Let's go for director. If I can spell it right. Gosh, really struggling. So we've got 290. Let's throw in GTM as a keyword, see what happens there. That's probably going to give me a lot more people. Oh no, not too many people. GTM lead, team GPT, that might go to market strategy, GTM. Now, I think I'm going to take that one out because it might not be the type of people I want to reach out to. However, now I have my 290. I just want to meet with other sales professionals in Lisbon. I host a couple of events here when I'm here, as I do in the UK. So I'm going to select all. select all, apply, and I can go through that same process again. I save the search, I export their details, I can add them to a list. When I add them to a list, you will be using your credits, so just be mindful of that as well. And again, because I'm not going to be emailing them from this platform, and actually in this particular use case, what I'm going to do is just send a message on LinkedIn to them. So I'll connect and then send a message on LinkedIn. So I don't need to worry about email addresses. I just want to get the total contacts as possible. And if I export this list now, I will be able to do so. Let me just show you the details that it gives on the individual level as well. It does have the LinkedIn here now, so I could click on this and look at their LinkedIn profile. But when I export that data, I'll also be able to access the LinkedIn URL, which I can go through manually, hand to a VA, or even use an automation tool when doing so. The last thing that I forgot to mention is that you can actually add different columns here as well. So there might be information that you want to add in. So you can add in company details. Anything that is grayed out means that it already exists in the column. But let's just say I want to, what would I want to do? Parent company, just to see how it looks when it changes. This will automatically update. And if it has a parent company, it will add it. Because of the list that I've built, I don't think it will need to. And you can also move some of these columns across as well. So it might be that this particular stat here, location or company size, is really important. So you might want to just move that across so you can see it in a different view or in one view here as well. So that's pretty much it. I would export these leads, whether it's the people or the company leads, run them through any enrichment process if that's what I was planning to do, and then enroll them in a campaign, whether that be a cold email, cold calling, or just simple LinkedIn only or a multi-channel approach. So hopefully that's helped. It's about a 25-minute video of showing you the basics of using Apollo. As I mentioned, as you go through and try the different filters, you're probably going to make mistakes. You're probably going to find that there's one filter that you put in that reduces the list to 7 people. Totally fine. Just delete that filter and try another way. Think also about those filters that are going to cause you red herrings when it comes to building lists, like revenue. If it's guest data, then is it worth looking for? Is that a must-have data point? If the answer is must-have, like that technology example that you need to integrate with a particular platform, then go for it. But just understand that if the database doesn't tag them as using a technology, they still might be using that technology. However, depending on your total list size, you might have enough leads anyway to go and prospect to without having to worry about that as well. If you have any questions, please do let me know. And I'm always happy to record more videos like this. All right, thank you. Take care. Bye.